officially kick off in Alaska. But you are watching live now from Fox. We, of course, will continue to bring you the coverage and the details of this summit as it does progress. And then, of course, later tonight, the full joint news conference. You will see it all here on Live Now from Fox, so you don't really have to go anywhere this afternoon or evening. We will be your destination for the summit and all the details to come out of it. But again, the stage is set for the joint news conference, and we will just be seeing in moments a little bit more of that play out. It was hard to see the first time we played it out because they were just showcasing it live, but again, because the signal might have been just a little bit not the best, but here is just a freeze frame of that, and you see President Trump and Putin sitting there, and then you have Rubio and Witkoff to the right there, as well as a translator that is right next to President Trump. More questions were asked to the two leaders. Nothing was said, but let's listen in. All right, at this moment, they are playing out no audio associated with this, but you see President Trump and Putin just listening to the reporters ask questions, really scream out the questions, is trying to get some reaction from either Trump or Putin, but we just cannot hear right now just because they are not playing out any of the audio associated with this right now. I'm looking on all the different channels, and we do not have that at this moment. But we'll keep an eye on it for you here on Live Now from Fox. You're taking a look here of our coverage. Thanks so much for being a part with us, and you will continue to see all of the highlights and, of course, the joint news conference a little bit later. We'll take a 2-minute break. We'll be back with more on Live Now from Fox, everyone.
Metaphorically holding his nose, keeping his distance, but instead he has, as we've been saying, been rolling out the red carpet. He has given Vladimir Putin full honours in this welcome, complete with a military fly past above, and then welcoming the Russian president into the back of Cadillac One, where we saw Putin sniggering, I think we can assume pretty much on purpose, for the cameras laughing in the back of Cadillac One. That is going to cause, obviously, disgust around the world, but particularly here in Ukraine. But I think Ukrainians will say they're not hugely surprised by this, and this is sending a clear message, not just to them, but also to Ukraine's European allies, a clear message that this is how Donald Trump sees where his sympathies lie, and that has been made pretty clear throughout his presidency. His diplomats have voted for the Russians on the Russian side in the UN. He has at many turns in this conflict given the Russian leader the benefits of the doubt, and he has let Vladimir Putin wriggle off the hook most recently, when he seemed poised on the brink of imposing much more severe sanctions on the Russians. He took this opportunity to let Vladimir Putin wriggle off the hook again and extended this invitation to this meeting in Alaska instead. So I think there'll be, I think, deep concern amongst Ukrainians that the pictures they're seeing here, Mark, today.
We are seeing from inside the building, and there is no sound on these pictures. We await that, if indeed there was any. As I say, it may well be that that the Russians didn't want that to happen. James Matthews is at the airbase with the American delegation. And James, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Donald Trump would normally seize the opportunity and would, hold court for what? Well, you see it day in, day out. Hold court for an hour, 2 hours.
Yeah, he would very much be the man in charge of an occasion like this, Mark. I think Dominic made a very good point, Mark. This business of the presentation of today. Donald Trump is a man, he's showbiz. Remember The Apprentice, and he knows TV. Look at the way he works TV. Look at, I don't know, when he recovered from COVID, there was a mini movie made of that, and he's all about being on camera, about the camera being on him, whatever he does, several times a day. He's in your face, and he's fully aware this is a defining moment for his presidency and for his legacy. And if you were a TV producer who wanted to make the movie of Donald Trump, the Peacemaker, you would have done exactly what he has today. From the word go, there have been pictures all over it, the departure from the White House, words on Air Force One, the wave at Air Force One, the spectacle of the landing in this far corner of the United States, the red carpet, planes nose to nose, and of course the superpower moment, the handshake of two of the most powerful men on the planet, all smiles, stopping for photographs, and nothing less than a military flyover, which has so nauseated people in Ukraine. That's Donald Trump, the movie maker, and he's making Donald Trump the movie here today. He knows the importance of picture. But interestingly, as you point out, Mark, he knows the importance of politeness in the company of a man he respects. I've been in the Oval Office in the company of Donald Trump, Mark. I was in the Oval Office when he signed the trade deal with the United Kingdom. And I got a keen sense there of how he manages an event like that. He's the silverback in the room. When he's speaking, everybody remains silent. That day, actually, and you talk about the special relationship. On a day he was signing a trade deal with the United Kingdom, I thought the UK didn't come off terribly well from that. We had Peter Mandelson, the ambassador, standing by his shoulder. A trade deal which on that day was beneficial to the United States. It wasn't everything that the UK wanted. I remember Donald Trump, now, Peter Mandelson, he's a gay man. Donald Trump at one stage during that press conference in which we were celebrating the special relationship, supposedly, he made a crack about Pete Buttigieg, who is a gay politician in the United States. He spoke about him being on a bicycle with his husband. I suppose that's great, he said. And I thought, how inappropriate in the company of Peter Mandelson to speak in such an
official meeting between President Trump and President Putin has, and their delegations, has now begun. That is the room where there will be a news conference afterwards, and if the Russians are to be believed, it might be some while yet. The Russians talking about 6 or 7 hours, but that's where that will happen. No confirmation, I have to say, although there are both flags there, whether President Putin will attend that news conference, but that's the room where that will happen. As to the other picture we saw, which was Donald Trump and President Putin sitting side by side, We're hearing now that there was nothing said, really. The leaders, there they are, the leaders sat silently with their delegations seated to the side, a lot of shouting from the press, but nothing at all substantial. You just saw President Trump say, "Thank you very much, thank you," and not taking the opportunity to say anything substantial. And although he probably wanted to, because that's what he likes doing, but I would think that President Putin didn't want to get drawn in to anything at all in that situation. And so that transpired, and the press was ushered out at 11:27 Anchorage time of President Putin.
Well, I'm not really surprised. And I think that what Trump did mean when he invited Putin to the United States. So he wants to make some kind of a pact with Putin, a deal, somehow to tear him away from China, to make him a situational ally or something. So I think Donald Trump wants President Putin to like him, as he likes President Putin. And President Putin seems to be quite, he looks like deep inside, he laughs. He's laughing at everything that's going on around because he feels his superiority, because that's what he has achieved. Trump still has achieved nothing in stopping the war that Putin had started. And now Putin is with Trump, invited by him into his own country. Well, it's a second Putin's success. He cannot do without Ukraine. He must do something with Ukraine. Yeah, and he must subjugate it. And so, if Trump says, "Okay, Vladimir, okay, I don't care about Ukraine. Do what you wish," then I think President Trump may get his temporary ceasefire. I believe very limited, very restricted, and for a very short period of time. But that's what Putin wants. He wants his control over Ukraine as a sign that the Western countries, NATO alliance, United States, do not wish and are very much afraid of the very idea of confronting Putin directly. And that's then his goal, his primary goal of humiliating the West and President Trump and all other European leaders will be achieved. It's very strange and awkward that European leaders cannot, or maybe they won't see it. But that's the situation as it is.
Okay, Boris Bondarev, very interesting. Thank you for joining us on the program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, let's go again to those pictures. We showed the pictures of the two sitting side by side just a moment ago. We didn't have the sound. Let's just have a look at those pictures with sound now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
Mr. Putin, will you agree to a ceasefire?
Thank you, press.
Mr. Putin, will you commit to not killing any more civilians?
Thank you, press. Let's go. Come on, guys. Thank you, press.
Let's go.
Mr. President,
Thank you, press.
President Putin, why should President Trump trust your word now after you bailed out of
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
We've got to
Thank
go.
you, press.
Thank you.
Over Donald Trump to his way of thinking and his vision of what the future of Ukraine.
In the States, he craves the attention, as we all know. He loves the hype. He likes the sense of history in the making, even when potentially there is no history in the making from this meeting. And he likes the spectacle. And as distasteful as this all sounds to the people of Ukraine, you know, there could be more spectacle here than substance.
Well, he's certainly got the spectacle, hasn't he? That picture of them shaking hands at the end of a red carpet there, you see them together in that room. He's certainly the centre of attention right now. But today he wants to bolster the image that he has of himself as a deal maker and a peacemaker. He wants that to be part of his legacy. He's got his eye on the Nobel Peace Prize. It upsets him that Barack Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize and he hasn't. He genuinely wants to bring about peace in Ukraine, whether that be for selfish aims or otherwise. I just don't see the route to that today, given that they have such different views of the future.
No. Martha, thank you very much. So what we can tell you is that this bilateral summit between President Putin and President Trump is now underway. And it's 9 p.m. in the UK, midday here, and history has been made in Alaska as Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin come together, the plan to see if it's possible to bring peace to Ukraine. The leaders landed in their respective aircraft at the Elmendorf-Richardson military base around 30 minutes apart. President Trump landing first in Air Force One. Both men stayed on their respective planes until seemingly prearranged. President Trump left first and made his way down the steps to greet President Putin. President Trump and President Putin walked onto the red carpet, connecting from each plane, and they met in the middle. And once on the tarmac, President Trump seemed to applaud the Russian president and greeted him almost like an old friend as he made his way across for the handshake, face to face, 6 years after their last meeting. And the meeting at the Elmendorf-Richardson military base here in Anchorage was organized not long ago, just days ago, but the work behind the scenes appeared to pay off as they followed the red carpets for all the world's press to see.
President Putin, will you agree to a ceasefire?
Mr. President, what's your message to Vladimir Putin?
Mr. Putin, did you
Mr. Putin was seen smiling through the window.
Press, thank you, press. Thank you, press.
Mr. Putin, will you agree to a ceasefire?
Thank you, press.
Mr. Putin, will you commit to not killing any more civilians?
The two men sat down together in front of the world's press, or representatives of the world's press, but the questions from reporters were drowned out, and any hope of hearing what the leaders had to say was lost. They also made it clear that they couldn't hear what was being shouted at them, or pretended they couldn't hear what was being shouted at them. Let's speak then to Ivor Bennett, our Moscow correspondent, who is with the Russian delegation. Also James Matthews, who is, of course, our US correspondent, who is with the American team. And James, let's start with you. So this bilateral meeting is underway, and as many of our guests have said, many observers are saying, it's already the very fact that this meeting has taken place in the way it has here in Alaska is something of a victory for President Putin.
Hi, Mark. Yeah, if there was any doubt about that word victory for Putin, I think that has gone away, having watched the spectacle of his arrival here. Remember, Vladimir Putin is the aggressor in this conflict. A man with blood on his hands, and yet he was given the red carpet treatment. Not just that, but he was received by a US president who appeared to be applauding his arrival, very much gave it the old friend greeting, and there was nothing less than a military flypast for a Russian president who ostensibly is here to talk about ending a war that he's a ceasefire announced today, and Russian press. Pursuing peace is the tagline on the stage behind two podiums set up for a news conference which will take place after the meetings, however long they should last. And we will get the detail, presumably some detail of what was discussed, how concrete that is in terms of a deal, a solution we, I wouldn't hold out too much hope because it has to be taken back to the Ukrainians and, of course, to European partners. But Putin looked very happy. He was all smiles, firm handshake. There was backslapping and, as I say, applause from Donald Trump. What we didn't get Ukraine itself. But Donald Trump, he has made an effort to talk tough going in to this meeting, saying that he'll walk away. He'll get a sense within the first 2 minutes if it's not going to work out, and if not, he will walk away. Well, we've had a lot more than 2 minutes. He hasn't walked away yet, so maybe the initial exchanges are going well. But Donald Trump has gone into this meeting being quintessential Trump, being a muscular president who fully recognizes the importance to him of this meeting. This will define his presidency. We will be talking about these events on this day for years to come in the context of success or of failure. Failure is what Donald Trump wants to avoid. He knows the importance of a result today for his legacy. And as I say, we wait to see what the outcome will be. Will it be a clear agreement that is seen as a good peace for Ukraine, or will it be seen as a bad peace? Will it be something in between? Will it be seen as a fudge? And I tend to think that's where the good money would be right now. But what is not in doubt is the regard, the reverence, if not deference, that Donald Trump feels for Vladimir Putin. That's what we see playing out in these pictures. An international pariah, a man wanted for war crimes, who kills civilians on a daily basis, warmly welcomed. I think people in Ukraine will think it's turning against them as they watch the initial exchanges. I mean, quite what conversation flows from those pictures and that reception. I can't myself envisage a bruising encounter in which Vladimir Putin is nailed to the wall with very difficult questions, with red lines, with a demand for answers on killing civilians, a demand for answers on ceasefire. Why the delay? Why increase the attacks on Ukraine? And
if he's going to get this ceasefire, Ivor is still with us, and Ivor, I assume that President Putin sees this as an opportunity to get what he wants, or close to what he wants, which I assume is one of two things: either a deal that is so favourable to him that he simply can't refuse it, or this, further extension to what is already a long, drawn-out diplomatic process that is buying him time on the battlefield.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, that's his goal here is to get exactly all of Russia's demands, to secure all of Russia's long-term goals here when it comes to its war in Ukraine. And that's not just territory. Territory obviously is part of it, but it's also about neutrality for Ukraine. The president must have something to show from this summit. So I think he will press towards peace. Or there could be other things, bigger things that feed into the bigger geopolitical picture, like a new nuclear arms control treaty between the US and Russia. Only one of those treaties actually exists still. Only one of them remains. It runs out in February 2026. So if the two sides can actually come up with a new nuclear arms control treaty, then for Russia that gives them something to point to say, yes, look, we do want peace in the broad sense. And for Donald Trump, it gives him something to take credit for in his kind of desire to try and secure the Nobel Peace Prize and to cast himself as this great peacemaking president. So there'll be these other things that the Russian delegation will be kind of putting on the table, sweeteners to kind of tempt Donald Trump with, distract him from what's happening in Ukraine, to say, look at all the business and other things we could get done in the event of better bilateral ties between us if you side with us on Ukraine.
Yes, Ivor, thank you very much. It's interesting since we've been in Anchorage that you do see people or you hear people around Anchorage talking about the visit of President Putin, and Martha Kellner, correspondent, was out and about yesterday and talking to people, and some of the people were saying they didn't want President Putin here, and these are pictures of a small protest that is taking place today against it's pro-Ukraine. It is a pro-Ukraine protest, as you can see from the flags there. And as I say, there are people who are upset about this visit to their city of President Putin. Not here, of course, is the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Donald Trump says he will be at the next summit as long as today's meeting goes to plan. Mr. Zelensky says the US president needs to adopt a strong position in today's talks, and says even as the leaders made their way here, the attacks on his country were continuing.
The war continues, and it continues precisely because there is no order nor any signals from Moscow that it is preparing to end this war. On the day of the negotiations, they are still killing people, and that speaks volumes. Russia must end this war. It started and has dragged on for years. The killings must stop. A meeting of leaders is needed. At the very least, Ukraine, the US and Russia must meet in this format for effective decisions to be made. Security guarantees are needed. Lasting peace is urgently needed. Everyone knows the key objectives.
Let's speak to our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, who is in Kyiv. And Dominic, there's no question about it. President Zelensky is clearly very upset not to be involved in this summit.
He is. He's very upset to not be at the table, but to his country's future to be very much on the menu. And his fear is, and his advisors and the Ukrainians' fear is, that their country is going to get gobbled up into Vladimir Putin's plans for a greater Russia, that he may well further in this meeting, this extraordinary meeting with Donald Trump. To give you a sense, and I'm sure you can imagine, Mark, the social media in Ukraine has just been lit up with fury, anger and disgust at what they're seeing in Alaska. But obviously, there are different ways of welcoming a world leader to this kind of event, and Donald Trump has gone all out to give a huge welcome to. He occupies territories, he destroys entire cities, he kills, he rapes, he robs, he kidnaps, he tortures, and as a result, he receives a red carpet welcome. And on Twitter, the Ukrainian journalist says this: the world's war criminal, #1 war criminal, and the key figure behind currently the world's largest war, the most brutal European war of aggression since World War II, ends up like this, pleased into oblivion and received as an emperor on the US soil. And he's tweeted a picture, that extraordinary image of Vladimir Putin in the back of Cadillac One, sitting alongside Donald Trump, grinning his head off. And he says, of course, he couldn't be more rewarded and encouraged to go on with his wars and mass murders. And, Vladimir Putin, looking at these pictures of him walking down that red carpet, he's someone who invaded Georgia in 2008 and killed thousands of people there. He invaded Crimea in 2014, killing many others, confected a civil war in the east of this country that has led to the deaths of many others, got involved in Syria where his forces bombed hospitals, killed many others there. And yet he's in this situation now. He surely can't believe his luck, particularly given that a few weeks ago he was looking at the possibility of much greater, much more severe sanctions that could actually really have done enormous damage to his economy, because they would have targeted his oil industry. That's what Donald Trump was talking about. That could have brought Russia to its knees. And instead, Donald Trump, he has to put substance behind his diplomacy. How he does that, though, in these talks is anyone's guess, because the differences, as we've been hearing from Martha and from Ivor, between these two leaders are still enormous. How you thread that needle between an American president who wants to make peace and a Russian president who is sincere about absorbing Ukraine into Russia, that is a huge diplomatic challenge for the Americans to try and pull off, if they are sincere in their intent to do so.
Yes. Well, I mean, you say that Donald Trump is walking away from Ukraine. He would argue, I guess, that that he is prepared to get tough, or he said he's prepared to get tough if Putin's not serious in terms of sanctions and rearming Ukraine, even if it means European countries buying those arms. So that would be, what I assume, what Donald Trump would say. Just finally, Dominic, I mean, we know that President Putin is a master of these things, a master of manipulation. Presumably, he's going to be working hard here in Alaska to cast Zelensky as the